What's going on, guys? If you have a Maytag, Kenmore, or a Whirlpool electric washer and you believe the control board is an issue, I think I may have found a fix or a solution for that, as opposed to just replacing this. So this is the control board out of my washer Cabrio vertical washer. It is the older style with the belt, but I ran some diagnostics on it, did the little code deal on it, and it's coming up with an F1E2, which points to the control board. Now there's a couple other codes there that I believe are not the problem. It's coming up with a lid lock. I think that might just be coming up because of the malfunction with this guy here. But basically, you got to pull out the control board. And when I was looking at it, I was looking for any solder joints that were burned, just visually speaking, anything that looked burnt or just kind of looked out of place. Now, I am by no means professed really well in electronics or anything like this, but I could, see anything burnt, but that was not the case. So the connectors look good. Visually speaking, everything looked great. So then I began to wonder, well, obviously people are refurbishing these, they're selling them with 1-year warranties and stuff, and they're kind of making a killing on it. I mean, brand new, these things are $150, $200. I bought my washer used for, I think, like 100, 150 bucks. There's no need to spend another 150 bucks on a control board if I don't have to. Let alone I found a used one, best price 60 bucks. Still, I'm kind of iffy. I can get another used washer for like 100 bucks. So anyways, visually, looked over everything, looked pretty good. And then something led me to these capacitors. I wanted to check the capacitor. So to do that, you flip it upside down, and then you get a tester, and you test the prongs here. Now, I was somewhat naive and thought I could test the resistance in ohms on my multimeter, but really that gave me nothing of any relevance. So basically, if you want to physically test these, the proper way to do it is test the capacitance or have a capacitance tester. And what you're testing is the UF value, which is actually the microfarad. And these ones are 1,000 microfarad and they're 6.3 volts. But if you have the proper tester, you can actually see what these are putting out. Again, I'm not well professed in electronics, but I believe somewhere, it's rated at 1,000 microfarads, and if it's 10 to 20% below that, so somewhere between like 800, 900, if it's in that value, then it's still good. But again, I was kind of naive. I tried testing the resistance, didn't get me anywhere. So I don't have the capacitance tester, the proper thing to do it. So again, going back to visually looking at it, another thing to look at with capacitors are the tops. Usually, these tops, these relief cuts are here because when it off gases or, when it goes bad, it releases some gases and these split, and that's what happens, or they bubble up. So it's kind of hard to see on here, but basically I was just kind of feeling along, and then this one right here kind of felt a little raised. So you probably can't really see it ballooned up at all. Yeah, this probably won't focus. But anyways, so you want to check the tops of these things if you're like myself and you don't have the proper tester to test the values. But one other thing to look at, so the top felt ballooned up a bit on this. Another thing to look at is the bottom. So all these other ones, the bottoms look good, but this one, something about this one, see how it's like pushed over to the side where the other ones are perfectly straight up and down? Well, I guess not so much this one, but these are pushed over to the side a little bit. Well, let's take a look at the bottom here. It's hard to tell, but there's a little blackness right at the bottom. Yeah, see, there's like residue at the bottom, and I apologize, it's super hard to see, but the bottom's ballooned out. So instead of the top being the relief part, it looks like this specific capacitor has actually blown out at the bottom of it. So the solution, instead of replacing this entire control board, I think The main reason these go bad is this specific capacitor here. Now there's 1,000 other issues that can happen with one of these, but I'm thinking this guy right here is going to be kind of the fail point of these. So now let's throw another 1,000 microfarad capacitor in there. We'll solder it in, hook it up, and see what happens. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and solder in the new capacitor. The one I'm replacing with is physically smaller. It's actually the size of one of these guys. That's all I had laying around. I'd assume ideally you'd want to replace it with one physically the same size. In this case, I don't think it makes that big of a difference because, you know, depending on the manufacturer and everything else, sometimes it's the same exact thing just in a smaller form. This one is rated the exact same. I can spin it around. Just physically smaller. So we're going to give it a shot. So here's that bad capacitor removed from the circuit board, and you know, normally they fail up at the top here like I previously mentioned, a little bit bubbled, but you know, failed at the bottom, the path of least resistance apparently. So you know, I didn't have the proper tools to test the physical rating of this capacitor, but you know, luckily visually I was able to see this. So now it's time to solder in the new one and put the washer all back together. We'll see what happens. New capacitor, fully soldered on. Here's my broke washer, Whirlpool Cabrio. Now we're going to install this into this, press that button, and it's going to wash some clothes.
A few moments later.
So the control board with the new capacitor is installed. I ran it on the normal setting and went through everything. Sensing, wash, rinse, spin, and now it's officially done. So I'm actually quite surprised that all that problem was just that tiny little capacitor. So if you're having problems with yours, definitely check that capacitor. So without further ado, let's see what the clothes look like. It's pretty good. Nice damp. Not soaking wet, so it sounded like it spun perfectly fine. So now I just got to toss it in the dryer to dry, but yeah, so if you're having problems with your washer, if it's a Maytag, Whirlpool, or Kenmore, and it's a, I don't know if they're all the same, if it's like a F1E2, excuse me, I think that's what the code was, but if it's a control board code, definitely take it out and look at that capacitor because it is very, very cheap to fix. It's only a couple dollars, so glad it fixed mine, and hopefully this video will help others fix theirs and save money. Thank you for watching.